Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy right here on Pub Sports Radio, Thursday, September the 9th. And I am fired up today because, look, we've had CFL for about a month. We've had college football for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, football's been here already. Well, now it's truly here because we got all three footballs that are now at our disposal as sports fans, as sports bettors, as sports handicappers. NFL kicks off tonight with the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looking forward to that. Of course, as always on this show, we will break down every CFL game this week. We'll also look at several of the games taking place for NFL Week 1 as well here on this edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Glad you're with us, and glad as well to have for the first time on this show as a special guest, Sean Murphy. Always good to have a fellow Canadian on the show, someone who's been the sports bettor and handicapper himself for, wow, I would say 10, 15 years. I'm just guesstimating right now. I think it's been at least that long. I know I've been at it for 10 years. So we're veterans in this business. We're the OGs of sports betting and handicapping, Sean. We were here doing this before all this nonsense about mainstream legalization and all this stuff, and everybody and his brother now is getting involved and doing sports betting and throwing out picks and doing content. Now, we've been here from the days when, it was basically, you can't mention the point spread during the game as a broadcaster. That's a no-no. Don't do that. We come from that era, so we've been at this a long time, Sean. Great to have you on the show. How are you?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ian. Glad to be on. Yeah, my first year officially sports handicapping professionally was 2004, if you can believe it. So this is going to be my 18th football season officially. So yeah, I've been it's pretty crazy what we've seen over those 18 years, the changes as you've mentioned, and how now it's just so mainstream that we're even seeing lines on the NFL Network on the ticker and whatnot. So yeah, we've come a long way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're seeing open dialogue on pregame shows and halftime shows about the betting lines. And certainly here in Canada, TSN is the network that shows CFL games. It's like basically inundated the entire broadcast for their pregame coverage, their halftime coverage, talking about betting lines and totals and props. And it's really amazing to see just the shift in the thought process of the mainstream media when it comes to sports betting now in 2021 compared to even just 5-10 years ago. Like, we're not talking just 20, 30 years. We're talking even just 5-10 years ago, the difference from then until now. It's been unbelievable. It's great for the industry. It also means, though, you get a lot of bad information, though, from people that are just throwing out just all kinds of stuff and not really putting in the time, maybe not watching games as much, not really understanding the nuances of handicapping, scheduling spots, situational elements. There's just they just skip over that and they look at, hey, team A is better than team B. You got to bet team A. Well, if it worked that way, it'd be much easier than it truly is to profit a year in and year out. Speaking of profiting a year in and year out, we're going to try to do that with this week's CFL card. We do have 4 CFL games on tap. Now, only a couple of books are reporting lines, but the good news is at least we do have lines for these games. So we will start with my Hamilton Tiger Cats taking on the Toronto Argonauts. Hamilton, one book has them -3.5 road favorites at BMO Field in Toronto. Another book has them 4-point road favorites. The total right now around that 45.5, 44.5 range. So again, once the lines are widely posted across the majority of Vegas and offshore books, you're going to see some fluctuation probably in these numbers, both with the side and with the total in some of these games. But we're just giving you that estimated side and total number that we're seeing right now. Sean, I was in attendance for the Ticats game on Labor Day. I'm a season ticket holder of this team, and I always pride myself on being truly unbiased when it comes to this team from a betting standpoint and a handicapping standpoint. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Ticat fan. I was truly dumbfounded with the amount of money that came in on the Toronto Argonauts on Monday in that game. I understand they were coming off a very good win at home against Winnipeg. In their last game, they had a bye week, and usually that's a good thing. And I like the direction that the Argos are going in, Sean. I really do think they're going in the right direction. This has been a dumpster fire team for years. Pinball Clemens has come in there, and he loves that team and that city of Toronto so much. He's not going to let them be shit forever, as far as I'm concerned. He's just not. He loves that team. He went above and beyond the call of duty to rebuild that team on both sides of the football, put a roster on the field that is quality, and I thought he did a really good job. You look at some of the receivers they have, highlighted by Eric Rogers. You have guys like Charleston Hughes and Cordero Law on defense that he added in the offseason. He did a great job building up that roster, but it still felt like it was a little bit asking too much for Toronto to just be 1.5-point underdogs in Hamilton, their home opener, one of the better home fields in the CFL. And the Ticats certainly played a good game on Monday, dominating both sides of the football. They made life tough on Arbuckle. That defense played extremely well, blew up the line of scrimmage. Dane Evans was solid at the quarterback spot. The O-line has progressively gotten better for Hamilton after struggles early in the year. But now we've got that short turnaround revenge spot. I know the Hamilton Twitter account was pretty nasty to the Argos, saying certified loser boys, in reference to the new Drake album that just came out after beating the Argos. So you got to think the Argos are going to fire back strong with a much better game here. And even though I loved Hamilton, and I certainly hope they play well and win here, I would probably think the Argos might be the side to look at in this game in the rematch here. Let's keep in mind they've had just one home game. It was against a very good Winnipeg team. They played an outstanding football game in that win against the Bombers. And I like the way Ryan Dinwiddie's going about it with this team. Like, Arbuckle's the guy. I know he had a rough game against Hamilton Monday, but he's still the better option. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to have anything to do with McLeod Bethel Thompson. I'm sorry. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's a veteran quarterback. I remember losing money thanks to that guy, betting on him in preseason NFL like 6 years ago. I'm still having nightmares, Sean, about that. So I don't want him anywhere near the Argos starting quarterback job. I want it to be Arbuckle. He's their future anyway at the position. So, look, Hamilton got the win Monday. I think Toronto plays a lot better here at BMO. I lean Argos here in this game. I was on the over on Monday, and I think you're going to start to see a shift with totals. I mean, Sean, it was 12-3 to the under going into last week, and sure enough, what did we see this week? 3-1 to the over. I mean, you just can't hang low 40s totals indefinitely in the CFL and not expect finally for some overs to hit. You're going to see it. I mean, once the totals go, the median total goes that low, you're going to start seeing some overs, and I think we saw that last week. So right now, I think the over is where the value is in some of these games, but right now you still have to pick your spot, matchup by matchup, and go from there. Sean, what are your thoughts here? Rematch with the Ticats and the Argos.
Yeah, I think we're on the exact same page on this one. I was thinking the exact same thing. On Monday, I had the over, same as you. Again, the total was just too low. It's funny because we were actually fairly lucky to actually get over that total. I mean, the first half looked like it wasn't going to even come close, right?
Yeah, 14 points at that time.
Yeah, we ended up getting that late score from the Argos to push it over the closing total. The thing that kept me off the Ticats on Monday was the weird line. I mean, like, it was such a short spread that it just felt like I had to be missing something there. Ticats got off to that horrible start, but in this short season, you had to figure that, they're going to turn it around sooner rather than later. And when they do, you think they're going to string a few wins together. So, off that strong game in Montreal, I figured they'd probably come out, take the home opener. But that line was just so strange to me that it actually spooked me off it a little. And like you, I actually like the direction that the Argos are headed in. And I liked what I saw from them against Winnipeg. So I kind of gave them a little respect in that one. Now back in Toronto, Toronto's got a bit more of a home field advantage now than in the past, back in the days of the empty Sky Dome / Rogers Center. Now at BMO Field, it's a little more of a real kind of home advantage for them. Quick turnaround back home. Spread we're looking at here, again, these are the early numbers. We'll see how it shakes out, but plus 3.5, +4. The only way I could really look, same as you, I'm thinking if Nick Arbuckle is the guy and we're not going to see anything from Bethel Thompson, I don't mind backing the Argos plus the points in this one. As for the total, I don't know. Again, that game on Monday just kind of barely snuck over. Last week, I ended up playing. I believe I had three of the 4 games. I ended up playing the over in. Easily won the game with the Redblacks and the Alouettes. That one just sailed over. And then we had on Monday the 2 games with that one sneaking over, and then we had the Stampeders and the Elks also finding their way over. So I'm with you. I think these totals are going to start creeping up again. I like the way it's set up on Monday as a higher scoring game. Here, I don't have a real take on the total. What are we looking at 45.5? So it's a little higher
45
than we
minutes.
saw. Yeah, a little higher than we saw on Monday. I'll probably lay off the total, but I fully expect to probably have some piece of the Argos in this one.
Yeah, and to keep in mind, these are 3 of the games this week on the schedule are rematches of last week, of Labor Day weekend. And this is the way it is in the CFL, the weekend after Labor Day. You get rematches. It's always Toronto-Hamilton, and then they play the next week in Toronto. It's always Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, and they play the next week in Winnipeg. And Edmonton-Calgary, they play in Calgary, and then they go to Edmonton. And that's exactly what we're seeing on this week's schedule. So we both lean like I say, I'm hoping for the Ticats to win. I'd love the Ticats to beat them again, especially in Toronto. But I think, I like the Argos, to be honest with you, in terms of the way that team's getting better. And the rosters was like, I thought there was a dearth of talent 2 years ago.
Yeah,
that was
great.
not a good
Now that they've kind of got their passing game in order, I mean, they've got a great running back in John White. So they're the question marks on defense. You look at their secondary, that might be an area where we saw for sure Monday Hamilton can exploit, but up front they're strong. I just think they have a good team. I'm not looking. That's not a team that I'm looking to fade as the season goes on.
Yeah. I thought more than anything for me, Sean, backing Hamilton Monday was like, this team's excited to be home. And
Yes.
even though Toronto's had a bye week, Hamilton had 10 days off since they beat Montreal the week before. So it was kind of like a mini bye week for them. It was more than your standard 1 week between games. And you give a good coaching staff. And I think Hamilton, you put their coaching staff up against anybody's in the CFL's best coaching staff. I mean, they brought all their coordinators back, same head coach, Orlando Steinauer. Every week they seem to have a good game plan, especially when they get those bye weeks and that extra time to prepare. And they just had the team ready for that Labor Day game on Monday. And they took advantage. Again, good coaching staff will take advantage of the time to prepare. Why has Andy Reid been so good off a bye week his whole career in the NFL? Many coaches, they do very good with that extra time to prepare. And Hamilton certainly was last week. All right, we'll move on now to the next game here on the CFL slate. This is on Saturday, the first of a doubleheader on Saturday. Actually, I believe it's a tripleheader on Saturday. Yes, all 3 remaining games are Saturday here this weekend. We've got Saskatchewan and Winnipeg rematch. This is the Banjo Bowl. That's what they call the rematch in Winnipeg every year. We've got Winnipeg 3.5-point home favorites here, 42.5 the total in this game. Winnipeg, road underdogs, winning outright at Saskatchewan last week. The Roughriders are human after all, a team that had played pretty much flawless football all season long. Cody Fajardo, a quarterback that's played flawless football all season long, finally had a hiccup. And look, there were issues for Saskatchewan. They're losing some key receivers to injury. Fajardo actually got banged up and came back into the game during that loss to Winnipeg. So how healthy is he going to be going into this one for Saskatchewan? This is usually, again, I try to make a case for the avenging team in these rivalry games. Lost the first game. So my first thought was take the points with Saskatchewan. But Sean, first look at the injury report for Saskatchewan. I'm not liking what I'm seeing. There's going to be some key guys out in this game for them, and I'm worried about just how healthy they're going to be. And when you look at this Winnipeg team, they're laying 3.5 on a home field where I can't even remember the last time they lost a home game. At this point, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they have just been so good at IG Field. Now, they did not cover the last home game against Calgary, but again, they were laying a touchdown in that one against the Jake Mayer-led Calgary Stampeders in that game, and it came down to the wire. Paredes misses a field goal at the end, and Winnipeg hangs on. They're not laying 7 here. They're only laying 3.5. So it's not a game right now, Sean, that I have a very strong opinion on because I'm worried about, I initially was leaning Saskatchewan, catching points, looking to maybe avenge that loss last week. But Fajardo is, banged up and finished the game, but he didn't look right. That was by far the worst game he's played this year. And I think the injury had something to do with that. They've got a cluster injury situation on the offense, at the receiving core. One of their key linemen went down to injury last week against Winnipeg. There's some issues injury-wise, and I'm going to need to see that injury report cleared up before I endorse backing the Riders here in this one. And like I said, Winnipeg's been good at home. There's no denying that. And and that defense, if that O-line for Saskatchewan, all I heard in training camp, Sean, was that O-line was bad for Saskatchewan. For some reason, they went through the first few games and they got through it okay and still won. And that O-line actually played respectable but they went up against Willie Jefferson and one of the best defensive fronts in the CFL, Winnipeg, and they were just overwhelmed in that game. And I don't know if that's a matchup disadvantage they can overcome here in this game. And keep in mind, it's their first road game of the season. We have not seen Cody Fajardo and the Roughriders on the road yet until this game. How can they handle that kind of environment? And they're playing one of the better teams to boot here in that first road game of the regular season. So, yeah, I was initially looking hard at the Roughriders side plus 3.5, but I've got concerns where I'm probably more likely to pass on this particular game. Sean, you got any opinion here, Riders and Bombers?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it might be the toughest game on the board this week. Last week, that was the one game I missed. I actually got behind the Riders at home, laying the points against Winnipeg, and it just did not work out. My thinking there was more along the lines of, I'm not that high on Zach Collaros for Winnipeg. They've got a lot of good parts to that offense, but their wide receivers have been banged up as well. I just didn't love the offense heading into that one, and I kind of thought the defense. I mean, Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat, these guys have been hurt for the better part. They've hardly practiced this season. Every week they're limited in practice every day, or they don't practice. And I just kind of thought, well, maybe that catches up to them this week. Maybe we see the Riders actually come out and put up a good kind of offensive showing, look to make a statement. It just didn't work out from the get-go in that game. They just seemed kind of flat. Like you said, Fajardo got banged up. It was just a bad game all around for the Riders. You have to expect them to kind of punch back here in this one, but again, like you said, Winnipeg, strong home field advantage. They very rarely lose at home. We're dealing with a very, very short line spread in that one. When I saw it earlier, it was 3.5. You're saying now 2.5. It's a tough call either way. As for the total, we've got the total in the low 40s. It's right about where it should be. I mean, we're talking about games. Maybe we'll start to see the scoring pick up. We'll start to see some higher totals. But if there's one game where we're going to see a lower score, we're going to look at a game involving the Blue Bombers with that just tremendous defense. So like you, I think this is probably a game. I don't see myself likely getting involved in this. I believe this is the first game of the triple header on Saturday. So this is probably one where I'll be sitting on the sidelines with no strong opinion.
All right, we have the Battle of Alberta rematch next. Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Elks. After Edmonton, which had a horrible track record in Calgary on Labor Day at McMahon Stadium for the longest time, and they finally got the job done with a very impressive win. I got to give Jamie Elizondo and that entire Edmonton Elks coaching staff credit. It's not easy to have a COVID-19 shutdown. An outbreak obviously had plagued the Elks going into that game. And to have them still mentally sharp, tuned in. Apparently they worked their tails off to prepare for Calgary during this break. Even though they couldn't practice, they were not on the field. They were looking at film. They were looking at tape. And I got some good info about that going into that game. And that's what led me to be in on Edmonton plus the points in that game. And I said, even though they're off the COVID outbreak, and maybe there's going to be a couple of guys out because they haven't fully recovered from being testing positive, I still felt that they were in a good situation based on what are you going to do when you're at home other than play video games and watch Netflix, watch TV, watch sports, whatever. You're going to try to prepare a little bit for your next opponent, watch some tape, try to figure out some weaknesses that you can exploit. And boy, Edmonton did that. And Trevor Harris, the last 2 weeks now, we were panicking a little bit about this offense a little bit after the first 2 weeks. But I said, let's calm down now. No season is 2 games long. Let's see we got a long season ahead of us. You really expect Trevor Harris, Greg Ellingson, James Wilder Jr., an offense with this many weapons on it to be this bad all season long? No. And now we're seeing the offense start to come alive for the Edmonton Elks, and it's been good to see. They've got back-to-back wins under their belt. But now can they beat Calgary a second straight time is the question. And really from a Stampeders perspective this year, Sean, it's really been as simple as bet them as a dog, fade them as a favorite. I mean, it's really been amazing to see this with Calgary. 0-3 against the spread as favorites, 2-0 against the spread as underdogs this year. And they are probably going to be a slight dog in this one because Edmonton is around a 1-point favorite. It's right around pick'em with Edmonton slightly a 1-point favorite. And, of course, the revenging team, Calgary here. Is this a game where we see Bo Levi Mitchell back? He was practicing. He was off the 6-game injured list prior to Labor Day. But they said it was still not enough time really to get him comfortable again. So they went with Jake Mayer, especially with the way he had been playing. But they lose a second straight game now with the young kid at quarterback. And I would think, Sean, that if there's any as long as there's no setback in Bo Levi Mitchell's health during the week of practice leading up to this game on Saturday night, then I think he'll be the starter here for the Calgary Stampeders on Saturday night. So we'll wait and see on that, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Bo Mitchell back as the quarterback here in this one. Certainly that's going to be a emotional boost, I guess, for the entire team. This one I would lean Calgary right now, but I am very, very high on Edmonton. I was coming into the year, and they were starting to make me look like a horse's ass after the first two games where they looked so bad for saying I love Edmonton. I think there's value on them at whatever it was. I think it was 11-1, 10-1 to win the Grey Cup. I had bet them over their win total of 6, and their start 0-2. Their offense looks dreadful, and people are just giving me the gears for saying they love this Edmonton team. Ian, what the hell was wrong with you? Well, now I can come back and say, well, what do you think now? They've won 2 in a row. They've looked a lot better, and I still think they can get over that win total. So I'm more higher on Edmonton than a lot of other CFL folks coming into the year, and for that reason, I'm probably not betting Calgary. But I think from a spot perspective, if Mitchell's back, given their prowess as dogs to cover numbers, Calgary would probably be the way I would play it from a side perspective. I'd probably go back to the over here. Sometimes in these rematches, Sean, you look for the under after the first game goes over the total. Okay, maybe you see that here, but there's a lot of weapons and offensive ability. I think with Markeith Ambles, Ricky Sindani, there's a lot, Herji Mayala, there's some good receivers. Josh Huff, even though Calgary lost some good receivers, they've got some ones that have stepped up and played well, and we know Edmonton's got a boatload of weapons offensively. And again, with this game, the total last week was 42. We have seen a little bit of an adjustment here. This total's 43.5 right now, slight adjustment. I don't think it's enough. I still think 43.5 is too low for these two quarterbacks, for the offensive talent they both have. I still think there's some sketchy defense on both of these teams, in my opinion. And I think Calgary's offense will look to improve this week after struggling last week. And of course, Dickinson, more along the offensive side of the football, offensive-minded head coach. I think he looks for this Calgary team. I think the focus is going to be more on his offense after kind of struggling last week on that side of the football. So, sometimes in these rematches, first game goes over, second game goes under, or vice versa. First game goes under, second game goes over. I might stick to the over again here because I just think 43.5 seems awfully light in terms of this total with the personnel offensively both of these teams have. What do you think, Sean? Rematch of the Battle of Alberta?
Yeah, I had the over on Monday. And it was a grind to get over the total, even though it ended up, I think it finished in the low 50s, but only thanks to that late touchdown from Edmonton, kind of on a defensive breakdown from Calgary. But I thought I'd be on the under in this one, but you're bang on with the total not being adjusted enough. I actually thought we'd see a 46 or 47 in this game, just based on that kind of high score we saw.
Yeah, I do too, because we got into the low 50s that last game, and I thought for sure mid 40s minimum, but it didn't. Wasn't that?
I wouldn't be shocked if we do see. I mean, these are early lines, and they're only from a couple of books, so I wouldn't be shocked if we do end up seeing this total maybe up higher than to 46 or so, when it's a little more widespread available here this week. And my thinking now, you bring up a good point with Bo Levi Mitchell potentially returning. That would obviously change things. If it's Jake Mayer in there again, I mean, he's coming off now 3 straight games throwing for over 300 yards. He didn't look as sharp in Monday's game, whether it was just defense, the Edmonton defense stepped up. I think it's more to do with just teams have more tape on the guy now playing in the CFL. I think they're better prepared to face him. So now you get Edmonton potentially facing him for a second straight game, 2 games in 5-6 days, whatever it is. If he's starting the game, I would definitely, the only way I could look would be Edmonton and possibly the under in this one. The Elks just aren't a team. I'd put them in the same category as the Argos. They're just not a team that I'm looking to fade right now. I was backing them sort of like you, backing them early in the season. Ended up trying to remember back. I had them against BC in their first win. I didn't actually play them in Calgary on Monday. I just stuck with the total, but we can only see that offense continue to progress, I would think. Calgary, just a tough team. I haven't had a good read on Calgary all season. I took them in week 2 against Toronto in that game when they ended up losing that one at home. That felt like a spot where we would see them kind of take off. But then again, Mitchell was, as we know now, he was playing hurt in that game. He was basically, pretty much useless in that contest. So it's just not a team I've had a great read on this season. So we'll wait and see what the quarterback situation is. But yeah, I would consider coming back with the under in this one after hitting the over if we get Jake Mayer back in there. The other thing with Trevor Harris in that offense with Edmonton, it just seems like he's a little overly cautious. A lot of his passes only seem to go to the line of scrimmage. Like there's a lot of short little plays that he makes. We're just not seeing him kind of bomb away the way you're accustomed to seeing kind of back in the day when he was with Ottawa. I don't know what it is, but later in the game there on Monday, we did see him take a few chances and it paid off. But that's my only concern with Edmonton's offense. It just seems like they go at times a little conservative or just a lot of check downs and it just results in a lot of these drives where they're just gaining 2-3 yards at a time and it's just not going anywhere but eating clock. So maybe the under in that one if we end up seeing that total creep up maybe closer to 46 or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you like the over, don't hesitate when the total and the totals and sides for CFL Week 6 get posted at DraftKings and Pinnacle, Bet Online, go on and on down the list. Every major Vegas and offshore book, I think you're going to see some movement up on the total initially, especially if it's 43.5, which is where we think it is right now. So that is probably a good suggestion. Is get on that over quickly because I think it will be bet up early on. And you're right. I mean, Edmonton should stretch the ball a little bit more down the field vertically. They've certainly got the weapons at receiver to do that, but I think they've done it maybe once or twice every game, and that's it. They have not made a point of it to do that a ton. So we'll see if, but maybe you just got to get more comfortable. Maybe you're going to see more explosive plays in the passing game for Edmonton moving forward. And I'm very, very relieved to see Edmonton bounce back, win the last two. Hey, they started out slow this season, but so did I in the CFL. It was not a good first week or two for me, but thankfully, Edmonton's turned it around on the field. My CFL betting's turned around. I think I'm 7-2 coming into this week, a nice little streak that I put together. So that's what it's all about. Make your adjustments, get better as the season progresses, all those cliches. And Edmonton is certainly a team that has been looking to do that. There's no question. All right, Sean, we've reached the final game for Week 6 in the CFL. Ottawa Redblacks and the BC Lions. These teams met just 2 weeks ago in Ottawa, and it was an ugly, low-scoring game that BC did enough. It wasn't really all that impressive by BC, but they won and they covered, and I was on BC laying the points. And I've been betting against Ottawa hand over fist the last couple weeks because they've been that bad. This is the worst team in the CFL. I don't think it's even close. I mean, they have looked like they're way down from even the second worst team in the CFL right now, this Ottawa Redblacks team. It's been a disaster for my buddy. And as I always say, when I mention him on the show, got to do it again. Head coach of the Redblacks, Paul LaPolice. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of La Police. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the beast. A little KRS-One right there. Paul LaPolice has had a very, very difficult first year here with the Ottawa Redblacks. And now there's some reports in Ottawa that because Matt Nichols has been so dreadful, they actually think that the GM's to blame here because the new Matt Nichols and Paul LaPolice had a great relationship in Winnipeg. He was the OC there. Nichols, the quarterback. What did you do? You just brought Nichols in here and traded Arbuckle and got rid of him because you wanted to make the coach happy, make him more comfortable? Do you want the team to actually win? So the GM's are coming under fire now because Nichols has been so bad. You got rid of Arbuckle. You brought Nichols in. Did you just do that to appease LaPolice, your head coach, because he worked with him in the past? Or did you really want us to win? Because people are looking at Arbuckle. Granted, the performance against Hamilton aside on Monday, he still played pretty well for the most part. And they're seeing Nichols, who looks like a noodle arm, to be honest with you, Sean. He could barely complete a forward pass. I mean, where's the zip in his passes? Where's the arm strength? I mean, it's gone. I mean, it's like the injuries have completely zapped his ability to play the quarterback position from him. Now, it's not all been him. The O-line's dreadful. They don't have much at receiver outside R.J. Harris. He's the one big brand name receiver they have. They've got these Daniel Petermans of the world and these young Canadian receivers that are behind R.J. Harris trying to, make a name for themselves. But that's not a great receiving core at all. And the offense is just in shambles right now. It's just a weak O-line, quarterback issues, not a great receiving core. And this team's struggling to put up points. And that was the way it started against Montreal last week in that blowout loss. But they did change quarterbacks. They did put Dominique Davis in, who was actually not very good 2 years ago when he was with the Redblacks. But he played actually well and sparked them a little bit at times. Now, he still threw a couple interceptions, but at least he moved the ball and put some touchdown drives together as well for Ottawa. And he's been named the starting quarterback. Matt Nichols sent to the bench, and Dominique Davis will be the starting quarterback for the Redblacks here in BC. As much as I've been fading Ottawa a ton, you would think now with the quarterback change, does that spark the team a little bit? You know they're going to be the point spread is the power rating is even dropping further on Ottawa after another ugly loss last week against Montreal, that maybe there's just going to be too many points now offered up to pass up, on the Ottawa side here in this game against BC. Now, BC's off a bye week, but there's an interesting thing I read. Rick Campbell, in his days with Ottawa, and of course now head coach of BC, he was not very good off a bye week. Not very good at all, believe it or not. His track record off a bye wasn't good in Ottawa. Now he's with BC. This is his first chance to show what he's made of out of a bye week. But, BC is going to be laying a hefty number here. They already beat Ottawa on the road, and now they're hosting them here. They're in that 7.5-point range right now at the main book that has CFL lines as of right now, 44.5 the total. As much as I've been fading Ottawa, this is not the week I'm fading Ottawa. It's just now they're catching more than a touchdown. They got Davis at quarterback. Is there any semblance of pride with this team? And say what you will about BC, and Michael Riley and the offense has been solid, but it's still not an explosive offense. This is not really a light up the scoreboard kind of offense that BC has. I mean, even the game in Ottawa 2 weeks ago, Sean, they just did enough to get by, get the win, settled for a lot of field goals, let the defense take care of the rest, and shut down just an anemic, pathetic Ottawa offense. It's not like they exploded on the scoreboard. So you're now going to have to lay more than a touchdown with a team that's not exactly always capable of punching in touchdowns and finishing drives. We've seen a lot of stalled drives, the last couple of weeks from this BC team. The Ottawa game, the Edmonton game that they lost before that, a lot of stalled drives in that game. To cover this kind of number, you got to be efficient. You got to get to the red zone, and you got to punch in touchdowns and not settle for field goals. You haven't seen a boatload of evidence of BC doing that the last couple of weeks. So I've been fading Ottawa successfully the last couple of weeks. I had BC in the first game. I had Montreal last week, and I thought I'd be continually riding this fade train. But just in this spot, I'm not going to be doing that here. And maybe Davis at quarterback. He was good at times last week. Maybe that does provide a little bit of a lift and a spark here for the Redblacks. But I'm off the Ottawa fade train, at least for this week. I don't know if for sure I'll take the points either with the Redblacks, but I'm definitely not going to be laying them with BC here in this game. Sean, what's your thoughts? Redblacks, Lions.
Yeah, I really liked BC in that spot in Ottawa a couple weeks ago, but like you, I wasn't overly impressed by their performance. What was the final? It was 24-12, I think, or something like that. It was just kind of an ugly game all around. BC is not a team that I'm looking to get behind right now. Mike Riley he's not healthy. I mean, he still can't get the ball down the field. They've made a few big plays in the last couple of games, but it's more just been the wide receivers, kind of doing their thing. It's just these are two teams that they're not really trustworthy at this point. I liked Ottawa to score some points last week, just with the talk that they were going to get Dominique Davis into the game for a little bit. I figured that would give them a spark, and it did. But then they end up giving up 51 points against, pretty much an average Montreal offense. So it's tough to really get behind either of these teams here in this one. Seems like the Ottawa defense is kind of just regressing each week. Like they started playing well at the beginning of the year, but then you wonder if that had more to do with the offenses just being so rusty without a preseason. Because I mean, that was the entire league wasn't scoring points. So I don't know if it really had anything to do with that Ottawa defense really stepping up and playing that well. So this is a spot where we can sneak in an overplay here. Right now, I think the total is at 44.5. It could be a situation where that one's point or two lower than I thought it would be. I think we see a bit more from Dominique Davis again this week, getting the offense going. I don't expect that to last. I don't think you'll see the Redblacks suddenly become one of these explosive offensive teams, but I think for a couple of weeks it can work just to give them some more life. So if Ottawa can get some points on the board in this one, BC is going to score even with Mike Riley kind of struggling for the big plays. They still do have a ton of talent on offense. The over might be worth a look in that one. I don't think I'd go near either side. The only way I could play it would be Ottawa with the points, but I just don't want any part of them right now either.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. I mean, I think that Ottawa might get a little bit of a lift from Davis at quarterback, but enough to take them still? I don't know. Not after what I saw. Not after giving up 51. I actually think Montreal's offense, Sean, could be good, but prior to the last game against Ottawa, they weren't good. They were penalties. Vernon Adams was missing wide open receivers. Bad decision making with the football at times. It was bad, and yet there they go into Ottawa last week and light them up for 51 points. And Ottawa, prior to last week, and I mentioned this when I was writing up the game that back in Montreal, I got in on them at -4. As soon as that line, I sent it out to clients -4, and then bam, the line just shot up to -7 by the end of the week. And in the write up that I had there, I said, you know what, with this Montreal team, they're going to be able to, I think, take advantage of an Ottawa defense that's been out on the field a lot. Finally, I think wearing down a little bit. I didn't think they'd wear down to that extent, but that's exactly what ended up happening in that game. And Ottawa's offense, again, better with Davis, but he still had a few mistakes as well. So, and that's the thing. If you like the over in this game, and it sounds like you do, Sean, the interceptions that Davis throws, they could help you out as well with the over. I mean, if they happen in Ottawa territory, then BC is going to get a short field to work with. So interceptions sometimes help you out as an over better. And the one thing I like about Davis, and the last point I'll make on this game, he's got some mobility. He's got some athleticism. Going back to East Carolina, I still remember those days. He was at East Carolina in college football many, many years ago. Dual threat quarterback. And when you have a bad offensive line and a banged up one like Ottawa has, a mobile quarterback can alleviate some pressure and stress from a bad offensive line, because when the pocket collapses, he's just not stuck there, standing there like a statue. He can escape. When the pocket collapses, make some plays at least. And I think that's going to give him a better chance. Nichols, you couldn't have that. That was not happening with Matt Nichols. He was just a statue back there. As soon as the offensive line broke down, he was getting sacked. Simple as that. At least Davis has more escapability for Ottawa than Matt Nichols, and that should help them out a little bit. The one thing I will caution people about, and even you, Sean, about the over, and I lean the over as well, but let's see if the BC Lions get Joel Figueroa, Riker Matthews, two of their better offensive linemen back, because they were injured and they both didn't play in the last game against Ottawa. And we kind of saw that offense, struggle with their own pass protection at times. But if they get those guys back, and you would think the bye week could help in terms of getting them back on the field, that offensive line will be back to closer to full strength for the BC Lions on Saturday night, which would be a good thing for Michael Riley and that offense. All right, let's turn our attention, Sean, to NFL. It is here. Dallas and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay 8-point favorites here, 51.5 the total. You know what? It just seems like everybody and his brother is going to like Tampa Bay here, defending Super Bowl champs. Everybody back from that Super Bowl winning team, the entire roster pretty much, the entire coaching staff. And now the offense, which was a slow start to the year offensively last year for Tom Brady, learning the new offense, new faces, new offensive line. That offense got better down the stretch, and now they're saying we're ready to go and play at a high level right from the beginning this year. And you pair that with a defense that was terrific in the run to the Super Bowl last year. You look at the players they've got on that side of the ball: Shaq Barrett, Levante David, Vita Vea, one of the better nose tackles in the NFL. I think that defense is outstanding on paper. And then even their cornerback, Sean Murphy-Bunting, made a name for himself in the playoffs last year. How good was he? How great was his development? How rapid was that? His development at the cornerback spot for Tampa in that secondary, outstanding. Antoine Winfield, drafted out of Minnesota. He's only going to get better now in his second. I mean, the team's absolutely loaded. They got 3 tight ends, Sean, that could play starting tight end on other teams: Cameron Brate, Gronk, and O.J. Howard. I mean, that's insane. I mean, you could get these guys starting for other teams at the tight end spot. And it's tough to trust Dallas. They got question marks galore. Dak off a serious ankle injury last year. Reports of a shoulder problem throughout training camp for him. Didn't see any preseason time. Barely got on the practice field. A defense that was an absolute sieve last year. Couldn't stop the run. Torch through the air. They bring in Dan Quinn as to shore up the defense as the new DC. It didn't go well for him as the Atlanta Falcons head coach, but at the end especially. But some guys are just built to be better coordinators than coaches. How many times have we seen that? Wade Phillips, Josh McDaniels. I mean, you can go on and on. There's so many countless examples of guys that are just better coordinators, and it doesn't work for them as a head coach. So maybe Dan Quinn can help this defense out, but I think it's still going to take time. I just find it very difficult to back Dallas right now with all the question marks. Do I always love being on a public side like this? No. But the public wins more in the NFL, Sean, than they did 5-10 years ago. It's just the way it is. It's not like the old days where 15-20 years ago, you're scared shitless to be on the public side betting NFL football and the underdog side or the sharp side, whatever, always cashing in. That's not the case anymore. I find there's just way more information and stats and data available to just Joe Public NFL better, and it makes them a little bit more adept to, have success. So even though I don't always love being on a very, very heavy public side like this, the public does win more in the NFL than they did, say, 5-10 years ago. And for me, this is the only way I could look is with the Bucs here. But more than anything, I've got the Bucs already, Sean, in some 6-point teasers below the key number of -3. Along with some other teams. Just think it's a difficult ask here for Dallas in this very first game with so many question marks, with Zach Martin out on the offensive line. And we know as soon as Dallas had some injuries on the O-line, that O-line looked nothing like they did, say, a year, 2 years ago, when actually Dallas, just a couple of years ago, had one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. And now you wonder if they're even a top 10 group, and they might not be, especially with Zach Martin starting the year injured for this team. And Tyron Smith as well. Questionable for this game all week, banged up. I think he's going to play, but boy, is he going to be 100%? That remains to be seen. And those O-line issues for Dallas concern me against this front seven that Tampa Bay can throw at them. Fascinating opening game, Sean. What do you think? Bucs, Cowboys?
Yeah, I liked the Bucs a lot more when they were -6, -6.5. Now, as you mentioned, it seems like everyone and their dog is obviously on Tampa Bay, and rightfully so. You brought up good points as to why Dallas is just kind of in a tough spot here. Now we're looking at the spread up at 8.5, 9 points. I don't want any part of Dallas, but I can certainly see a situation where you may see Tampa Bay build up a big lead. I mean, they could be up by 15 points with a couple minutes to go in the fourth quarter. It's a blowout, and the Cowboys could certainly end up tacking in a garbage time touchdown to end up in the back door. So it's kind of a tricky number now that we're up into that 8.5, 9 range. I think I'm not a big proponent of teasers, but in this particular situation, I do think that the Bucs aren't a bad play to get down to that -2.5 kind of area, just to avoid that potential backdoor situation in this one. The Cowboys, it's hard to know what to expect with them, really, because you hear everything out of everyone saying the right things. Dak is ready. He's looked great at the end of camp. There's no issues with the injuries. But until we see him in an actual game, it is tough to actually trust that we're going to see the old Dak kind of come out and just firing on all cylinders. Now, at the same time, Dallas still a lot of talent. Their receivers actually, I think, match up okay against this Tampa secondary. It's just the question is whether Dak's going to have enough time to kind of find them. I think one area we might be able to take advantage of here tonight might be just on some of the completion props for Dak, and also the pass receptions for the Cowboys wideouts, because I think you're going to see a lot of kind of short passes, quick passes to the outside from Dak, especially if they end up falling behind in this game and you see kind of Tampa Bay soften up the coverage a little bit. I think you'll get a lot of those easy completions from Dak. So last I checked, we had him at about 25.5. I think was the over under on pass completions. And you've also got CD Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, all three of those guys I could see kind of approaching their pass reception total in this one. So that might be one way to play it. On the flip side, the Tampa offense, I mean, it should be able to just take advantage here. That Dallas secondary was horrible last year. I believe they gave up the most touchdown passes in the NFL, and there's really no reason to expect them to be a whole lot better this year. It's the same crew back. And now you've got Tom Brady, as we know now in the playoffs, was on the torn MCL. I mean, he's back healthy, coming out of the gates here after kind of a more normal training camp, full preseason. We saw Brady actually get into some games, which is different. So I think that offense is actually going to come out and play fairly well tonight against this Cowboys defense. And I think if you're looking at maybe a couple of touchdown props tonight, maybe with the Bucs, you might want to look away from the Godwin and Mike Evans, who certainly have a good chance to hit the end zone. But I think you might want to look at Antonio Brown, maybe even OJ Howard. You mentioned you mentioned the tight ends.
Sean, you've nailed them. Howard and
like
Brown.
OJ Howard at around plus 250 to plus 300 for a touchdown, I think is great. Everyone's going to be looking to Gronk. I think even Tom Brady has mentioned OJ Howard kind of as a potential breakout candidate here in that offense this season.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he feeds him a little bit. Same goes for Antonio Brown. Just might be a good idea on opening night to kind of look away from the more popular touchdown props and look to those guys kind of with a little better payout. And on the flip side, I would also look at Dak Prescott as a plus 225 to plus 250 as a potential touchdown scorer, just because I think he's going to be running. He's going to be forced to run a little bit here tonight. They get down inside the 5-yard line. I wouldn't be surprised to see him run one in as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of things I think that make sense there. The Dak may be running down by the goal line. I could see that. The short passing game, quick passing game, get the ball out, because I don't think they're going to have tons of success running the football. This is not a night I trust Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard, those Dallas running backs to have success. Vita Vea is one of the better run stuffers and nose tackles in the NFL. He is just is a terrific run defender. And I just don't, and with an offensive line that's compromised for Dallas, with Zach Martin out, with obviously Tyron Smith might or might not play, but banged up. Now La'el Collins is going to play. Thank goodness for that for Dallas, that they're at least going to have him in there for sure. But this offensive line to be able to run block, I don't see it. I don't trust them to have success doing that. So I think the short passing game is going to be the modus operandi, if you will, for the Dallas Cowboys to move the ball. And I'm with you on the touchdown props. And if you follow me on Twitter at Bobano, you know the primetime games in the NFL for the last couple of years, I've been posting my touchdown scorer props, and we've been hitting some plus 400s at times, some plus 5. Like, we really look for value, Sean. We don't go for these minus 1. You want to lay minus 150, Mike Evans, anytime touchdown, knock yourself out. Go for it. I'm not interested. I'm looking for a little bit more value. I'm looking down the board. I'm looking for things that maybe, okay, this guy's this price, but guess what? He's got a favorable matchup here against this defense, or down by the goal line in the red zone. And he could get some targets. He could get some looks. He could get fed the football down there. And O.J. Howard stands out in that regard. And you're right. Brady's been singing praises of O.J. Howard. And look, because he has not played much with O.J. Howard because of injuries last year, and Gronk and Brate were the main two tight ends, I think there's going to be an onus on Tom Brady, TB12 here, Sean, to get the ball to Howard. Let's get that chemistry going. Let's see if we can get that rapport going right away with O.J. Howard. So that's why I think he is going to get some looks tonight. I wouldn't talk you out over receptions and receiving yards on him, but I like that plus 275 to plus 300 number that you can get on O.J. Howard to score a touchdown tonight. I think there's a very good chance he gets a chance to get in the end zone tonight for that Bucs team. All right, we will move on now, Sean, to the Sunday card. We'll go rapid fire. We'll have about 15 minutes or so left in the show. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, 6.5-point home favorites, 48 the total. Don't have a strong opinion, to be honest, on this one. I've got Buffalo in some teasers because I think they win the game. I don't know if I'm ready to lay 6.5, though, because I'm very unsure on my power rating on Pittsburgh, because there's a thought in my stomach here, pit in my gut saying they could be really bad this year. And then there's a part of me that thinks, hey, there's not going to be much of a drop-off this year. And Ben's looked good in camp. He's looked like he's been in better shape. They bring in Najee Harris to bring in more balance, run the football a lot more. They still got good receivers. The defense is still going to be solid. The O-line is the concern, though. 4 starting offensive line starters from last year gone, and there could be a little bit of an adjustment period there. What's your thoughts, Sean? Steelers and Bills?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I like the Steelers this year, but not here. This just isn't a spot that I want to take the points with them. Buffalo will win the game. I'm almost certain that they'll find a way to pull it out. But I don't have a great feel on the spread in this one. What is it up? I think it's over. It's over a touchdown, up around -7.5, -8, or something like that. It's just not a game I'm interested in. There's much better spots, I think, on the Sunday board. Even though that is one of the most interesting games on the board, it's just not most interesting from a betting perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Jets and Panthers. Panthers 4-point home favorites in this one. 44 the total. This is one of the games I'm on. I'm on Carolina here, minus the points here in this one. And look, it's Sam Darnold. I get it. You're laying points with this guy. He's never shown you anything yet. But I think he's away from Adam Gase. He's away from the stench of the New York Jet franchise. He's got an offensive line that Carolina's offensive line ain't great, but it's better than what he had with the Jets. He's got better skill position weapons than he had with the Jets. I like Carolina's skill position talent, and having a healthy running back in Christian McCaffrey He's going to be the safety blanket for Sam Darnold. Get the ball to Christian McCaffrey, let him do his thing. He's got weapons down the field. He's reunited with Robbie Anderson, who he played with on the Jets a couple of years ago. DJ Moore. I like some of these receivers for Carolina. And I don't want to make it sound like college football translates to the NFL. We don't always see that, obviously. Look at Steve Spurrier in the NFL, Nick Saban in the NFL. Coaching ranks for them didn't go well in the NFL for them. But Matt Rule has a tendency, at least at college he did, with Temple and with Baylor, teams get better year 1 to year 2, significantly better under Matt Rule. And I think you could see that here in Carolina. I think they made a lot of improvements on defense. They had to. It was the weak link of the team last year. And the Jets, people going on and on about, Zach Wilson this, Zach Wilson that in training camp in the preseason. Could I get him out there against a number 1 defense, for crying out loud, first before we lose our minds? The Green Bay game, people talk about that stupid Green Bay game back in August. Did you realize they didn't have a single defensive starter on the field? Like, I'm telling these guys, like, hey, moron, you didn't have a Green Bay starter on the field there in that game. Can we calm down with Zach Wilson's going to be the next coming of Joe Montana? I can't take it, Sean. It's driving me nuts. There wasn't any defensive starters on the field for Green Bay in that game that Zach Wilson looked so good. Can we see him now in week 1 on the road, play well against a defense that has all their starters on the field, a coach and a team that's going to be game planning to shut him down, which doesn't happen in the preseason? Can we see what Zach Wilson does in this game before we just lose our minds with how great this kid could be? That's all I'm asking. Can we see how he does here in this game? I don't trust him in this first game. I think Salah is a great hire, and in time he will show to be a good hire, but I don't trust Wilson on the road. The defense got banged up in training camp. Gerard Davis, Carl Lawson, 2 huge injury losses in training camp for the Jets that are going to hurt. So I'm on Carolina in this one. You got any thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets were easy to kind of fall in love with in the preseason just because of how well Wilson played, and they're going to be better. They're, bringing, a new coach, new quarterback. There's nowhere to go but up for that franchise. But here in week 1, you just look at the players that the Jets have at the skill positions on offense. I mean, their backfield is well below average, and they've got, who's their top wide receiver? Corey Davis, who's never been, really turned out to be anything at this level of football. So you got to kind of wait and see what we get from the Jets. I think the Panthers, you mentioned, their defense is going to be a lot better this season. You've got Christian McCaffrey back healthy, which is that's huge. I mean, he's one of the top players in the game, big time game changer for them. Sam Darnold has something to prove here against the Jets, even though I don't love that kind of narrative anytime, but everyone's got something to prove in the NFL. But in this spot, yeah, I don't want any part of the Jets. I haven't actually played the Panthers yet, but I would guess I might maybe on them in some form on Sunday, regardless.
All right, this is fascinating. Houston, Jacksonville. Jacksonville 3-point road favorites, 46 the total. I'll just throw it to you right now. The lesser of two evils. What is it? Laying points on the road with a rookie quarterback and a rookie NFL head coach, or taking Houston at all at any number right now, given their situation? What is the lesser of two evils to you?
Yeah, in this one, it's hard to do, but I really like the Jags in this game, actually. I think Houston has a chance to be just, beyond awful this season. I think it's almost just a lost year for that franchise. And maybe this will be one of these freezing cold takes on Sunday when Houston comes out and puts up 35 points or something. But I just think this is a good matchup for Jacksonville. They let Gardner Minshew go. They believe in Trevor Lawrence. He's obviously talented. He's going to come in. The preseason didn't go great for him, but I like the guys he's got around him. I like their wide receivers. James Robinson, they lost ETN, which is tough, but James Robinson he's a capable running back. I think this is a fine matchup for Jacksonville, and I'm kind of surprised the line actually has hung around at -3. I think it is that kind of I actually read an angle here earlier today that first overall draft pick quarterbacks are something like 0-12 in week 1 the last 12 times that's happened. So there's reasons that you could come up with an argument to fade the Jags here, but there's really no reasons to come up with an argument to support the Texans. So I kind of like the way this one sets up for Jacksonville. I think they can do enough on offense. I think the defense, it's just a favorable matchup. I don't love that defense by any means, but with Houston coming in with Tyrod Taylor and the
Yeah.
ghost of David Johnson in the backfield. Like it's not a team you want to get behind right now. I think Jacksonville's got a whole lot more going for them. There'll be times that we'll be able to fade the Jags. I don't think this is a spot to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville's defense looked pretty rough in the preseason, but I mean, they got a matchup against a Houston offense that's got Tyrod Taylor, check down city, dink and dunk all over the field. That's what it's going to be. A receiving core that's not great. It's a digestible matchup for Jacksonville's defense. But I think Houston actually defensively played well in preseason. Their defensive starters were solid, played decently, and they had depth there. I mean, they were shutting teams out. Second half of those games in the month of August. So I actually think the under could be worth a look here in this game, 45 and a half. It seems a little bit of a stretch to think those teams are going to combine to get into the high 40s in that one. I like the under in that game. I don't like the under in this next game, Arizona and Tennessee. Tennessee 3-point home favorites, 52 the total. I'm not going to try to bang my head against a wall and bet against Ryan Tannehill 21-4-2 to the over trend as starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. I mean, it's just been over Palooza right now with Tennessee. And I think their defense with Bud Dupree will be better, but I think it could take time still. A new face, trying to get comfortable on a new defense could take time. I think Arizona's offense is outstanding on paper with what they've got. They're good backfield now. I don't like James Conner as a starting running back, but as a part of a stable of running backs here with Chase Edmonds, I think that's good. Hopkins, Green, Kirk, Rondale Moore. Watch out for him. They're raving about Rondale Moore, the guy out of Purdue in training camp. An incredible receiving core on paper, Arizona. They're going to score points. Murray, I think, ready to take that next step at the quarterback spot. We know Tennessee's defense, they could be a little bit better. How much better? Because they're trying to get better from an awful defense last year. Arizona's defense, pass rush wise, Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden, J.J. Watt. I mean, I think they've improved. Their secondary still a little sketchy, though, and you got to try to match up against A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. And, there's some good receivers here for this. And Josh Reynolds, who they brought in from the Rams. So I think it's a shootout here. I'm high on Arizona. I lean Arizona +3, but I've already got Arizona over their win total. I don't know if I want to pile on, but I lean to the Cardinals. I'm high on them. I think they'll be a bet on team, but I really like over the total in this one. Sean, what do you think here?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think if this game was a little later in the season, we might even see a total set in the low 60s for this one, depending on how these teams started the season, because they're just that good on offense. And I think I think both offenses play fast. I think we're going to just see a lot of plays in this game. You look at that Arizona offense, they upgraded the offensive line in the offseason. Big upgrade in the slot with, as you mentioned, Rondale Moore, the rookie coming in place of Larry Fitzgerald, who just wasn't, just a shell of his former self the last couple of years. So I think this Arizona offense has a chance to be really good. The defense, up front, they're okay. I think the secondaries, it's questionable at best. I think Tennessee can take advantage of that. The side I just don't want any part of here. I like the Titans generally at home, but man, that defense has been hard to trust in recent years. I think back to last year, that one game in particular against the Browns, when it was like just a ridiculously high-scoring game where they just couldn't get a single stop the entire afternoon. And this is a tough matchup for them. The only thing with the Cardinals is once in a while you will see them go on the road and kind of lay an egg. But as you said, Kyler Murray maybe makes that progression here this season, and maybe we don't see that quite as often. So I'm with you on the over. I think this is one of those games where they just can't set the total high enough here in week one.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be the case here. Chargers, Washington. Washington 1-point favorites, 44.5 the total. Two teams I'd rather bet on than bet against. I think Washington's a team I'll be looking at back in spots. Chargers, certainly. I've got Chargers win totals over. Chargers as a dark horse in the AFC West as well to maybe upend the Kansas City. I know that might be asking a lot, but I thought it was worth the sprinkle. I like the Brandon Staley hire as the head coach. Did a great job with the Rams as DC. Good offense, defense. Derwin James back finally. That's going to help this Chargers team. I think talent-wise, they're better than Washington. They're capable of winning this game, but I don't want to sell Washington's defense short. So even though I'm leaning Chargers here, I might stay on the sidelines. What do you think here, Chargers and Washington football team?
Yeah, this is just a tough call all around. I think that's kind of makes perfect sense with the line where it is at pretty much a pick 'em. It's the Chargers defense is going to be much better this year. We're not going to see all those cluster of injuries like we did last year. Offensively, you get Herbert back in the system again for, start right out of the gates. Eckler, there was talk of him being hurt this week, but it sounds like he's good to go. Chargers, they're just not a team I'm looking to bet against right now. But like you, here we got Washington at home. We're talking about an elite defense that should, take another step forward this season. So again, not a team I'm looking to fade. Even on offense, Washington, they have a few good pieces in place. I don't love Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I do think with Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, it's an offense that's capable. So if Fitzpatrick can just distribute the ball without without too many turnovers, I think they can have some success. It's just two teams that like you, I think I'll probably be looking to back more than fade. This was just, as soon as I saw the board, this is a stay away game for me.
All right, we'll go for about 10 more minutes before we wrap it up. Philly, Atlanta, 3-point favorites, 48 the total in this game. I'll keep this brief. These are just, I talked about the last game, two teams I'd rather bet on than bet against. These are two teams I'd rather bet against than bet on, and they're playing each other here in this one. I guess default, I'd lean to taking the points with Philly because they're the dog, but I don't like much about either of these teams coming into the year. I think I've got Atlanta under their win total, and I'm certainly not ready to lay points with them. So I lean Philly, but I don't love it. I'll probably end up passing. You got anything here, Sean? Eagles, Falcons?
This one, I don't like this. I don't like either side in this game. I don't mind the over. Last I checked, I think it's around 48. I don't mind that spot. I think the Atlanta offense looked brutal in the preseason, but again, no starters playing. We're going to see a different. We've got Arthur Smith there now coaching. I think you're going to see an improved Falcons offense this year with, you got Matt Ryan back again, Calvin Ridley, and everyone's talking him up as kind of a huge fantasy guy this year. We'll see. That Eagles pass defense, I don't like. They're strong up front, horrible in the back. Offensively, Eagles should be able to. You're going to see more of a run-oriented offense, but I don't think that's the worst thing. They've got a lot of talent. They've got Jalen Hurts, who's dual threat quarterback. You've got Miles Sanders, who I still think's one of the more underrated starting running backs. I think we see both teams here probably put some points on the board, maybe a 27-24 type game to creep over the total. So I don't mind the over in that one.
Yeah, and the over's taking money in that one as well. Seattle and Indianapolis. Seattle, 2.5-point road favorites, 50 the total. I said in my team preview videos I did on my channel, Sean, Seattle's a team I'm looking to bet their games over the total. I think the offense is going to be good with Wilson. They beefed up the O-line, bringing in Gabe Jackson. Dwayne Brown will be healthy, the left tackle. They still got Metcalf and Lockett. Good run game. They'll be able to put up points with Wilson, but that defense, they didn't address the pass rush. I still have questions about the linebacking core outside of Bobby Wagner. I don't like I actually think the secondary's worse. They lost Dunbar and Shaq Griffin. I thought those were two good corners for them last year. I don't know if they've replaced them with anybody as good. I don't think they have. And it's Jamal Adams. Can you trust him to stay healthy? I don't think so. I think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. But my one concern here is we're talking about a total of 50, and Wentz and the Colts offense has not had any time and continuity on the field throughout preseason training camp because of Wentz's injury issues. So that's the one little concern. In general, I'm looking at Seattle over the total in their games. I don't know if this is the game I want to put that theory to the test, though. What do you think, Sean? Seattle and Indy?
Yeah, I think you almost hope for a lower scoring game here, and then you'll probably get a more favorable total for the Seahawks coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I agree they're going to be a good over team. I just don't know if this is a spot when you've got that solid Colts defense, very questionable offense. I mean, T.Y. Hilton got hurt in the preseason. Not that he's been kind of lighting the league on fire lately, anyway. But
and O-line
their wide
injuries.
receivers, yeah, and their wide receivers are subpar. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. is probably the go-to guy this year, which is not saying much. Carson Wentz, again, I just don't know what to expect from him in the offense when we haven't seen it yet. So I won't be looking. This is probably another game I'm not really looking to play, unless maybe if we had some sort of threw together some money line parlay or something, maybe throw the Seahawks in there. But again, not a defense that I trust. So it's kind of just a tough spot all around. Probably a good stay away game, much like the LA Washington game.
Minnesota, Cincy. Minnesota 3-point road favorites, 47.5 the total. Man, I wish I was getting a few more points, but I'm still in the camp of I'd only look to the Bengals, believe it or not. Here, I'm not ready to lay points with Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. They've got issues on both sides of the ball. They didn't look great in preseason. At Cincinnati, the one thing they can do with Burrow is come through the back door and keep games close because that guy can just flat out play. The O-line, I think, will be a little bit better. They got still weapons. T. Higgins, solid group and receiver still. Joe Mixon in the backfield. I don't think the defense is going to be very good for Cincinnati. That's the worry. I mean, they got Eli Apple at the starting cornerback spot. This guy's been cut from 2 or 3 different teams now. Here he is in a starting cornerback spot for the Bengals. So this could actually be a game that could go over the total, but what are you going to get from the Vikings offense is the question. I lean Bengals. I feel more comfortable with Bengals and teasers, though. I've got Bengals +9 in a bunch of teasers this week. I don't see Minnesota blowing them out. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I don't see a blowout. I think you'll see the Vikings will probably help out the Bengals defense a little bit just by sticking to the run a little more than maybe they should, because I think they could take advantage of that Cincinnati secondary with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I just don't know that they will. I think Mike Zimmer wants to go back to more of a kind of defense first, run first kind of a team. Whether that's the right thing or not, I don't know. So in this particular game, I have that total a little lower, so I tend to think 47.5. I feel like that number could be a little bit high with Burrow coming back from the injury. Just the Bengals offense, I think they'll move the ball a little bit. I just question how many actual drives they'll end with touchdowns on the board. So I would consider a look to the under in that one if we can get it at 47 or higher.
San Fran, Detroit. San Fran 7.5-point road favorites, 45. I think San Fran wins the game. Am I rushing to lay 7.5? Not necessarily in the home opener, because even the bad teams like Detroit, first game of the year, everybody thinks they're good. It's a 0. Everybody's record is 0-0. But I do think San Fran wins the game, and I've got them in teasers. That's about it. Sean, anything here?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, San Fran wins the game, but your guess is as good as mine by how many. Detroit is just a team that we all know that they're going to be a team that's likely going to be near the bottom of the standings this season. That's no surprise to anyone. That's already been factored into the line. Niners probably win the game by between 7 and 14 points. So we'll leave it at that. That's a tough one.
I'm high on the Cleveland Browns, and I'm backing them this week as they take on Kansas City. Kansas City 6-point favorites, 54 the total. A very high total, but it's warranted. I think this could be 31-28 when it's all said and done, high 50s. I do think it could go over the total, but I like Cleveland plus the points, playoff revenge. I'm high on this team. This offense is loaded. I mean, Baker Mayfield doesn't even have to throw the ball every down, not with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and a very good offensive line. The defense is maybe the one area of concern, but I think they beefed up the defensive line. The secondary's deeper now. Denzel Ward should be healthy. They added to the secondary a little bit. They should be able to cover a little bit better down the field than when they got torched by Mahomes in the playoff loss last year. I'm on, and look, for everybody says it's you can't bet against Mahomes. You can't bet against Kansas City. Did you see their ATS record last year? Yeah, you could bet against them, and yeah, you could have success doing so. I like Cleveland here, Sean. What do you think? This is a big one, Browns and Chiefs.
Yeah, this is probably a game that comes right down to the point spread wire at -6. I think it's neither team. I'm not looking to go against either of these teams. I don't want to get in front of the Chiefs. Had a good preseason, good camp. All things are positive. They could come out rolling, but then you've got the Browns who suddenly have Super Bowl aspirations. As you mentioned, the revenge angle here, which I don't always factor in too much, but. These are two teams that I just don't want to get in front of right out of the gate here in week one. I just think there's better opportunities on the board. Total, looking into the mid 50s is getting a little steep for me. As you said, a 31-27 type game maybe. But we could just as easily see a 30-24 type game sneak under by half a point. So this is another game that'll be very intriguing to watch. Maybe not the best game to bet on.
All right, Miami, New England 3-point home favorites at Foxborough. The Mac Jones era begins as he will be the starting quarterback, 43.5 the total in this one. I do shows weekly, twice a week with Gabe Morency and, of course, his longtime buddy Cam Stewart. They've been at it forever, going back to the days of Score Television Network in this country and Hardcore Sports Radio. And Cam Stewart does a great Paul Bearer voice. And whenever he's betting an under in the game, he always goes, keep taking, Undertaker. That's what I'm looking at in this game, Sean. Low scoring. I think New England's an under team all the way. This total's already been bet down a lot. I totally agree. They're going to run the football a lot, short to intermediate passes with Jones. I think Miami's stronger on defense coming into the year than they are on offense. I've still got to see it from Tua in this passing game. A lot of people liking the under, but it's hard, at least in my opinion, to argue with that. What do you think here, Sean? Dolphins and Pats?
Yeah, when you're trying to play an under these days, it's a little tougher in the NFL, but I think what you're looking for is teams that are going to be able to move the football. You actually want the offense to have some success. You just don't want them to end those drives with touchdowns. And this is a kind of a blueprint game for that kind of thing, where you're going to see that two teams have some success, maybe running the ball, getting some 5-6 yard gains, getting some first downs. But then you've got, the two quarterbacks. I just don't know. With Mac Jones, he looked great in the preseason, but again, that was against a lot of, second and third stringers on defense. So, you get him on one side, and then you get two on the other who's yet to really prove it at this level. I think we see both offenses kind of march up and down the field. I just don't know that we're going to see a bunch of explosive touchdown plays. So I think you're bang on with that one. The under would be the only way I could look here.
Denver Giants, Denver up to 3-point road favorites, 41.5 the total. I got in front of the line move in this one. I think I took it when it was 1.5. Actually, it just took the money line at that point when it was minus 125, I believe. I like Denver here. I think they're going to be a much improved team. And from the quarterback position, we know it'll be Teddy Bridgewater. I know Teddy covers. Maybe think of him as Ted Savransky, the handicapper. This is the other Teddy covers. Teddy Bridgewater, because he covers numbers, and he's done that on the road throughout his career. And I think he's going to do that here. All he's got to do is not make the critical mistake. And Drew Lock sometimes last year made too many critical mistakes. Just clean football, no turnovers, let the defense, let the receiving court, let everything else about this team looks very good on paper. Defense, Von Miller and Bradley Chubb back and healthy again. Great secondary, in my opinion. Kyle Fuller brought in. The offensive line improved. Finally have Cortland Sutton healthy again. This team is very good talent-wise, on roster-wise. Just don't screw it up at the quarterback spot. And this could be a much better football team this year for Vic Fangio, who's a little bit on the hot seat. And I think they start off strong with a win here against the Giants. And I like their defense against this Giants O-line, which still, to me, stinks. And they're going to have to show me they're better, this Giants offensive line, before I believe in it. So I think Denver gets it done. It probably goes under, but, man, 41.5, pretty low total. Sean, what do you think here, Broncos-Giants?
Yeah, the Giants are probably going to get off to a pretty slow start here offensively. Some people might be, baited into thinking that with Saquon Barkley back, maybe, home underdog here in week one, maybe it's a good spot to get behind them. But I think the line move kind of says it all. I think the Broncos are just a better all-around team. I have my questions still with that offense, whether they can consistently put points on the board. I just don't think they're going to have to put a lot of points on board in this game. This might be a game where the Giants score 7 to 10, 7 to 13 points, something like that. So if we're only asking 17 to 20 out of the Broncos offense, I think we can get that. Maybe we get a couple turnovers for short fields. I'm with you on that one. I like the Broncos.
All right, Packers and Saints, 4-point favorites, Green Bay, 50 the total, neutral field. Jacksonville, of course, relocated due to the hurricane this game. Jameis Winston earned the job. I thought he was outstanding, to be honest, in preseason for the Saints. But what can he do now with the bright lights on, the regular season? Can he find teams that wear the same players that wear the same jersey as him when he's throwing the football down the field? That's going to be the big question. But I'm kind of leaning to the over here because we think Rodgers should be able to move the ball. Saints defense has some questions to me coming into this year. What can the Saints do offensively with Winston is the question. It's not a game I have a strong opinion on, but a light lean at least over the 49.5, 50. What do you think, Sean? Packers and Saints?
Yeah, I have to wait and see with the Saints. We got to see what we get out of them right here out of the gates. It's been so long watching Drew Brees run that offense that now we've got to kind of readjust and see what we're actually going to get from Jameis Winston with them. Packers have always been one of those teams in recent years that I have a hard time getting a good read on. It seems like they're going to be overvalued a lot of weeks, and then they end up, blowing the doors off the opponents, or then you have other spots where they come out and just look completely confused out there. So this is another game I'm probably gonna stay away from. You throw in the aspect of the neutral field as well. Total up close to 50. I'd lean slightly into the over, but again, I'd rather see what we're going to get out of the Saints offense first.
All right, Sunday Night Football on NBC, Bears and Rams. Rams 7.5-point home favorites, 46.5 the total. I think the under could get there in this game. I certainly don't see Chicago putting up points in bunches against this Rams defense. Bad O-line, Andy Dalton, the statuesque quarterback back there against Aaron Donald and this ferocious defensive front. That's a nightmare matchup on paper. Everybody said the same thing, but it's true. It's hard not to look at this as a nightmare matchup, Bears O-line versus that Rams defensive line. This could be trouble. Now, the question, though, for the Rams is can they put up enough points to cover 7.5-point home favorites against a Bears defense that actually might not be that terrible? it is still Matthew Stafford's first game with this new team, new offense. Didn't really see the field at preseason. Can he just be flying out of the gate and rolling right away? Maybe, maybe not. I think Rams win the game. Rams are on a bunch of teasers for me. Once again, I think they win the game. I'm a little bit leery of laying 7.5, but I do think the game could go under the total as well. What do you think, Sean, Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, you have to figure the Rams win the game. I mean, the Bears are kind of just throwing Andy Dalton to the Wolves here in this one, and it's a situation where you have to expect that he's probably going to struggle in this game. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Justin Fields coming out at halftime in this one, if depending on how things are going. Although Matt Nagy seems pretty set on Andy Dalton finishing out this week anyway. I think by the time we get to week 2, week 3, there's no question Justin Fields will be in there as the starter for the Bears. So the only way I could look in this one would be to the Rams. Again, it's another tricky situation. New quarterback, new offense. It's really hard to gauge what you're going to get out of these offenses with the new quarterback. So, I have some faith in Matt Stafford. He's never really been on a real winning team, so you have to think he'll be excited to get out there and run this offense. So it's Rams or nothing for me in this one.
I'm one of those people that believe he'll be fine with the Rams. He'll be great with them. I like the Rams. I think they could win this division, maybe even be in the Super Bowl. But they got to stay healthy. The one thing they don't have is a lot of depth at a lot of positions. So that's the one thing you worry about with the Rams. Monday Night Football now, final game, Baltimore, Las Vegas Raiders. We got the Ravens, 4-point road favorites, 51 the total. I mean, there's issues with Baltimore. Already lost 2 running backs to injury, J.K. Dobbins and Justice Hill. They're down to Gus the Polar Bear Edwards. And that's about it. And then, of course, you've got offensive line issues as well developing here in camp. A lot of injuries. And that's why, this number has stayed put. And, Las Vegas sometimes in these home dog spots, especially these primetime games, they've done okay in some of these spots in the past under Gruden. But I've got questions about the Raiders. And even though the Ravens, I thought for sure I'd be on Baltimore, Sean. But the injuries are bothering me. But I will not be going against Baltimore for one very clear reason. John Harbaugh kicks ass in week 1. How many times have we seen this the last few years, just not only winning and covering, just beating up the opponent and just running away with it, blowing out teams, annihilating teams in week 1. He has his teams ready in week 1. And for that reason, I just won't stand in Baltimore's way here. What do you think about the Monday Nighter?
Yeah, the line's fairly reasonable. It's not ordinarily, I don't want to lay too many points with the Ravens because they just, by nature, the way they run that offense just shortens the game pretty much by default with just so many run plays and so many kind of long clock eating drives. So, it's tough to lay points. We're on the road against the Raiders, but the Raiders are the Raiders. I mean, they're not a team that you want to have money on. I know this will be a popular play. Coming out of Sunday, a lot of bettors are going to be looking to back the Ravens here. So we may see this line maybe climb from where it is right now at -4, -4.5. This is going to be one of those games I'll decide on Monday morning whether I'm going to play it. It's not a game that stands out to me on the board this week. Too many question marks with, as you mentioned, the injuries for the Ravens. They don't have a good wide receiver core. It's a tough team to kind of get behind right out of the gate. But as you said, with Harbaugh, and they've got a track record of kind of blowing the doors off the opponent in week 1. So probably a stay away game for me for now. We'll see what happens come Monday.
Here's my theory with the Raiders here. Could they be a sneaky under the total team this year? Because I think the defense could actually be a little bit better. I think they've made some improvements there, but the offensive line lost 3 Pro Bowl starters from last year. That O-line is going to take a hit. And Derek Carr, he's one of those quarterbacks. He's good, but he needs the table set for him. He needs a good O-line. He needs Pro Bowl linemen in front of him. He needs a good receiving core. If he's got to now operate with a shaky O-line and lesser receivers, is he really going to be as good offensively? And this Raiders team going to be as good offensively as they were last year? I don't think they will be. So I actually think and if they're putting up these Raiders totals, Sean, like they're the team last year, which was all offense, no defense, I think it actually could flip a little bit this year. So maybe a little underlean for me in that game. With the Ravens and the Raiders. Sean, great stuff. You're a great guest. I know we went long. Apologize for that, but great stuff. Before we wrap it up, throw out a college football game this weekend that you've got your eye on.
Well, I think there's a couple if we want to just look at tomorrow night's games, actually, the 2 line games. We've got Coastal Carolina laying a fairly large number against Kansas, but I don't know if they've set it high enough, to be honest. Kansas did, barely anything last week in that 17-14 win, and then they had the fans come on the field after the game. This Kansas team is not good. Coastal Carolina, I still think, they're still a top 25 team this year. It wasn't just kind of a one-year wonder last year, where they were ranked just by default because there was so many teams not playing in the early going. They've kind of proved their worth, and I think Coastal Carolina could be an all right play tomorrow night, even in the -20s in that one at home in a rare national kind of spotlight game on, I believe, ESPN2. And then the second game in the doubleheader tomorrow night, we've got Boise State taking on against UTEP in that game. And I think people are just a little bit lower on UTEP's offense than I am. I think that could be a game where we see a few more points than most are expecting, with the total in the low 50s. I had that closer to 60, so that might be worth a look at the over in that one.
There you go. There's some Friday night college football opinions from Sean Murphy there. Maybe look at the big favorite, Coastal Carolina. And it's Coastal or pass for me in that game. I mean, Kansas, seriously, guys, you're going to run on the field and storm the field for beating FCS South Dakota South Dakota at home by 3 points. I mean, you're that hard up for a victory for this moribund, pathetic football program that you're going to storm the field in that spot. Oh my gosh, that's how bad it's been for Kansas football. But I agree. I think UTEP too. Sneaky, maybe that they could sneak through the back door. I think the back door could be open in that game because Boise, by the way, has not been good as home favorites on that blue turf for a very long time now. They've been money burners as home favorites. It's not like the Chris Peterson days in the 2000s where they're killing teams on that home field in that Smurf turf. They've been bad in home favorite role for years now. I might look at UTEP plus. I might go mining for units, Sean, mining for profits there with UTEP tomorrow night. And I like the over. I think that could get there. I think you're on the right path there with UTEP Boise maybe being a higher scoring game. Great stuff, Sean. Let everybody know where they can follow you on Twitter, get your information, all that stuff. Let us know.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Murphy_sports. And yeah, free picks, premium picks available at various sites around the internet, but Covers Experts being one of them.
Awesome stuff. We'll have Sean hopefully back again later this football season for sure, right here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. That'll wrap up this edition of the show. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. For my special guest, Sean Murphy, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great football weekend. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will see you again next Thursday right here on the Ian Cameron Football